This conference will now be recorded.
The caucus meeting of August 18th, 2020 will now please come to order. Present are council members Broussard, Schuman, Heeman, Glassburn, Lippert, Kelly, the mayor, clerk of council, human resources director, planning and development director, finance director, the assistant law director, and our guests this evening. First on tonight's agenda, are there any corrections or additions to the caucus meeting minutes of August 4th, 2020? Seeing none, we will now look at our legislation that is being considered for suspension of the rules this evening. We'll start with those on second reading. Resolution 2020-80, which is authorizing the mayor to accept a donation of 4 new defibrillators from the Cleveland Clinic to be used within the Division of Police. And Councilman Broussard, that was heard in your committee?
Yes, Madam President, discussed in committee last week. No issues whatsoever with suspension. Thank you.
Thank you. Any objections to suspension? Seeing none. The next piece of legislation to consider is Resolution 2020-81, authorizing the mayor to purchase a truck. This was heard in committee as well. Councilman Glassburn, you handled that.
Yes, the MTEC truck is going to assist with flooding throughout the city. We are purchasing it. We're intending to purchase it next year, but because it can be helpful in the immediate issues that we're having right now, we're moving it up as fast as we can.
Thank you. Any objections to suspension? Seeing none. The next piece of legislation to consider is Resolution 2020-82, authorizing the mayor to enter in a contract with Wind Supply Company to supply touchless plumbing and electric fixtures for municipal restroom facilities. And this was heard in committee as well. Any objections to suspension?
Madam President, there was no objection through my committee on this because it's so time sensitive.
Thank you, Councilman Kelly. The next piece of legislation, we're still on second reading, is Ordinance 2020-84, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with ODOT to allow the resurfacing of Brook Park Road. And also heard in committee last week. And Councilman Lippert, any objections to suspension?
Thanks, Madam President. No, in order to meet state deadlines for it to be bid out this year, there was no objections.
Thank you. Council, any objections to suspension? Seeing none, we will now move into legislation on first reading. We'll start with Ordinance 2020-92, repealing ordinances 2020-65, 66, 67, 69, and 70. And this has to do with our charter amendments. Councilman Glassburn, did you want to add anything or have any discussion regarding suspension for this?
Is there a reason why we're not listing 68? Yeah, because there were 6.
Yes, Chuck.
That one did not pass. So these are only the ones that passed on
I see.
FLS.
Okay. Thank you.
Council members, any objection to suspension of the rules? Seeing none. Ordinance 2020-94, which is the ordinance that has to do with Mackenzie Road and the replacement of the culvert. And this is on first reading, being requested for suspension. Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you, Madam President. I had some communication with Director Lieber, so she will be addressing that for us this evening. The short of it is that as we've been updated prior, the Mackenzie culvert is in much worse condition than we first anticipated. And so that is the reason that the work is a little bit more urgent. So Director Lieber, please, if you'd like.
Thank you, Councilwoman and Madam President. We did discuss this issue about 2 weeks ago before council, the urgency and the city partnership with ODOT to get this work done. At that meeting, I had predicted a construction estimate of around $370,000. That's been reduced to $350, or $360, excuse me, but ODOT will be picking up that cost, but we need to advance the money on the front end to pay for it. ODOT and the city have worked together to identify 5 pre-qualified firms. The project is out to bid and bids will be collected Friday. We've filed all required permits with ODOT and we're waiting for their instruction to clear their environmental reviews. So it's moving quickly, but we're working together to get this project complete before the weather changes this fall. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Council, are there any questions for Director Lieber about this project? Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you. Director, could you just go over quickly the 5 contractors, and you don't have to describe all of them, but I think that many of our council members will recognize their names and be a little bit more comfortable knowing who will be bidding on this for us, please.
Thank you. ODOT requires that we select only firms that are pre-qualified for this specific type of construction work. And so we use their pre-qualification list plus additional experience that we've had with firms working in North Olmsted or in the region. So the 5 are Fabrizi, that did work on our parallel relief sewer of Walter Road and Springvale Pond dredging. They also did a recent Bradley Road culvert project. Terrace Construction, that's currently working on our signals. SET Incorporated, that's done excellent work in Willoughby Hills with our city engineer. Neroni also has had success working in Willoughby Hills with our engineer. And then Great Lakes Construction, that did our major wastewater treatment plant upgrade. So all well qualified and all very responsive so far to our request for bids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Schuman.
Can I ask the director how long we expect the road to be closed when this work is done?
Yes, Councilman, we're hoping to have the full road closure contained to about 3 weeks, if we can. There might still be lane closures, but it would still allow for traffic. In our bid documents, we had a 45-day construction window, so we're being very aggressive. We've talked to some of our contractors that will be bidding and wanted to get an idea of what they thought was feasible, and we're hearing that might be that 45 days might be achievable. So we'll hope to keep that the full closure will be limited to as few weeks as possible, but it could be about 3.
And also that culvert, it's is that north or south of Windsor? Is that about where it's at?
It's on Mackenzie, it's like just south of the 480 overpass.
Okay, so it shouldn't disrupt the neighborhoods over there getting onto Mackenzie to go north. There shouldn't be closures that way, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, any objection to suspension of the rules? Seeing none. And the final piece of legislation to be considered for suspension of the rules this evening is 2020-97, which we just received. So I'm going to read that out loud. And that is a resolution dispensing with the RFP process to enter into a contract for construction engineering services for the same project that we were just speaking about, the Mackenzie Culvert Replacement Project. So that is also being requested for suspension of the rules. And Director Lieber, if you wanted to address that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. This is a companion piece to 2020-94, and my apologies, it was requested at the same time as the other legislation, and I think just got kind of lost in the shuffle. The city is responsible for construction engineering for this project, both for funding it and selecting the contractor. We want to have this engineer on board at the beginning of the project to fulfill all of ODOT's requirements for inspections, materials, testing, and reporting. We intend to hire quality control services. They're ODOT pre-qualified, and they're also District 12's current task order consultant that ODOT routinely uses for many of their major construction projects. They're actually currently overseeing our signals phase 2, and they're doing a superb job. So they've currently already helped us look at our plans and specs and provided a little bit of unofficial feedback. And they visited the site and shared some observations with us. The proposal, unlike design engineering, is based upon hours that they'll be on the site. So we don't have a specific cost estimate just yet, but in terms of budgeting, 8 to 10% of your project cost is probably about what we should be looking at. So in the 35,000 is probably what this project will cost from an construction engineering standpoint. They're a very competent firm, and they also have great ODOT connections. Most of their employees are former ODOT employees or retired ODOT employees. And the project is being led by a current North Olmsted resident who lived for a long time on Southern, so is very familiar with the area. And I think that they will do a great job advising us and making sure we follow all of ODOT's many requirements. Again, apologies for the late arrival. I think a lot of departments thought I submitted maybe 2 of the same legislative requests for Mackenzie Culvert, but they were different, and this one just didn't get incorporated until I took a closer look at the piece at 94. So sorry, apologies for that, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say that, I've gone over the contract and it seems pretty standard. Director Lieber has described it fairly inaccurately, and I think that this was just an oversight, and so I'm absolutely fine with suspension for this as well.
Thank you. Any objections to suspension? Seeing none. Assignments for committees on first reading, Resolution 2020-93, Environmental Control, Resolution 2020-95, Finance, and Resolution 2020-96, Finance. Council members, so looking to schedule our committee meetings for next Tuesday, August 25th. In addition to Finance and Environmental Control, Councilman Limpert, if you as Vice Chair of BZD would be prepared to call a BZD meeting for an economic development update. And then in addition, we'll finish up next Tuesday with a committee of the whole meeting to discuss greater access for our council and committee meetings. Look at the information that our clerk is going to provide for council for that. So scheduling for Tuesday, August 25th. Councilman Schuman.
I'm under the impression these will only take about 15 minutes, so I'll say 7 o'clock to 7:15.
Thank you. And Councilman Limpert. Councilman, I need you to unmute.
That would help. I'd like to have a 15 meeting for BZD, discuss the economic development plan. and I'm guessing that would take at least 30 minutes, maybe 45. So let's go with 7:15 to 7:45, and ask that the economic subject matter expert as well as Mrs. Lieber could be present. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you, Madam President. Environmental Committee will meet at 7:45 then, and I believe 15 minutes should be sufficient for that. So we will conclude, I would believe, at 8 o'clock. And I would think, Mayor, if you'd like to tell me, would you like to take that, or you'd like to have someone else as well?
I will probably be there as well as Director Lieber.
Thank you. And we will schedule committee of the whole then at 8 p.m. Again, to discuss the greater access for council in committee meetings. And if the mayor and Director Lieber would like to just stay on as well, I think it would be important to see the information that our clerk has pulled to see if there's other uses for that, for example, with our boards and commissions who might, find that information helpful as well. So that would be great if you could attend as well. And Councilwoman Heeman, I saw your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we've concluded the regular caucus business, I'd like to discuss the purchase of masks for residents. I've circulated some quotes and some information to council, and I was hoping that we could come to a consensus this evening as to what we would like to purchase. So I'd like to begin by saying a few things. The first is that I think that we did have a quote by CCP Industries. The challenge with that is the youth sizes come in packages of 5, so they'd have to be opened to be distributed. The delivery time was a little bit longer, and they actually would not be participating in the distribution with us. So they are a little cheaper than the masks that are from Joann Fabrics, and I believe that I purchased enough for everyone had a sample of that Joann Fabric mask. They come in multiple patterns. They do have a plain denim that they could give us. Those masks essentially are $2 a piece, and that breaks down because it's a $3.99 purchase, and then they donate. I was in contact with Joann Fabrics. They will help with the distribution based on certain days and hours at their store. They will also be willing to store our inventory for a week, which means that we would be able to distribute for an entire week, so multiple days in a week if we purchased with them. I've been in contact with the North Olmsted City Schools, and I have commitments from Terry Groden, the president, and he directed me to Michael McDade, who is the director of their business development, and he has stated that he will provide us with whatever enrollment information we need and statistical information to pass out the youth mask to the population there. He will also provide us with assistance with PTU moms, perhaps, school district staff, whatever we need to get those in the hands of the families and students. So the population breakdown is something that is interesting in that there are 3,608 students enrolled in the North Olmsted City School District. Adding in students that go to St. Brendan's and perhaps other, the private academy in our school and or high schools outside of our city, that roughly, brings us to like just under 5,000 of a purchase. So if we purchased 5,000 from Joann Fabrics, that would be a $20,000 payment, purchase order really, and that we would then have 10,000 masks, which would cover our entire youth population. I believe would cover our senior population. obviously the students, the adult underserved and maybe unemployed population, and we would have a great deal of assistance in the distribution of that. We could purchase again if we needed to, but we would certainly know within a week or two, that there would be a greater need or not. So we could also purchase in a lower increment if, the appetite was for that as well. My concern is to making sure that we are serving certain pieces of our population appropriately. So each person, of course, would be required to show a resident ID or proof of address, and the school district will break down for us in any way that we want the information, so that the mom could come and say, and I've got 3 kids, and maybe the distribution would be at Birch School. And so we would know who those, who that household is. We would check them off of our spreadsheet. They would export that to an Excel spreadsheet for our tracking. So we could guarantee that no household would have a duplicate, really. So I would like to suggest, I think that I am in favor of purchasing 5,000 masks at $20,000, leaving the residual in the appropriation bucket for now for about 30 days, 45 at the most. If we have no greater need, then we, of course, would put the money back as we discussed at their last meeting. So with that, I guess I would open it up to questions and comments.
Council members, Councilman Limpert and then Councilman Glassburn.
Yeah, if I could just ask, I know last meeting the mayor said that we have masks available if people need them. I was just curious, how have those been distributed, or where would those be distributed? And have we looked at specific locations in need, like the food pantry or senior center? Or how are those being, where are those available? Thanks.
Madam President?
Mayor.
Yeah, we just have some masks here at the mayor's office. We actually had someone come in yesterday or the day before looking for masks because I think they read an article on it, and so we gave them masks. Other than that, we've had no one come in with the need.
Thank you. Councilman Glassburn.
Thank you, President Jones. We had, Councilwoman Heeman described the student population. Some of those folks in the high school age are going to be adult sized. So we're really looking at in the vicinity of about 3,500 to 4,000 individuals who are between the ages of 4 and 14 that might be child sized. I spoke with a number of the PTA folks in the city. Many of them actually were involved in the face shield effort that I've been working on. And they were very excited and thought there would be a demand and need for this. As to our potential defining what our poverty or underserved populations might be, prior to the epidemic in the 2018 ACS, we were looking at about 15% of the city in terms of the adults. So if we just increase that 15% by the increase in unemployment to conservatively to 20%, we're looking in the vicinity of 6,000. So those two amounts put together gets us close towards a 10,000 total in terms of target. However, there has been some valid discussion that many of these folks have masks already. I do support Councilwoman Heeman's desire to have a number of these available. Joanne sounds like a great partner to work with. We can't know how many we will be distributing until we create actual events and times to be distributing them. So we need to have at least a starter supply, a significant starter supply, in order to really, I think, test out the demand beyond just the academics of how many people are there, in the schools or in poverty. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you, Madam President. What I'd like to stress is that these are reusable, washable masks, and they don't have a limit on the number of uses. I mean, when they wear out, obviously they will wear out. I believe, the mayor has offered from his business supply, not a city supply, which isn't wholly reliable, I don't think, when people really start to show up and want them. But they are disposable, not reusable, and that's a big difference. If you have children now that you've got to take to the grocery or do go somewhere with them, the state government is mandating that they have to wear a mask. And I think that, to think that someone is going to just continue a repurchase of disposable masks or continue to come to the city to retrieve another disposable mask is a burden and unfair, when in fact, the CARES Act has provided, government money to governments to use for PPE and other things. And I respect that the lobby is a valid project. I do think, however, that the residents are deserving of something for their protection, particularly since it is mandated by the government, and we are the government in our local level. So I am encouraging and would hope that the consensus of council would be to purchase some increment, 3,500 of them, 4,000 of them, certainly not more than 5,000. I have no desire to go above that number as an initial purchase and test to see what the demand and need is. Thank you.
Thank you. So, council members, is there any objection to the council purchase of the masks for, I'm sorry, Councilman Lippert?
Sorry, I was responding to your question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I mean, to me, I think Councilman Glassburn made a good point, and I would be hesitant to make a bulk purchase until we have a plan to distribute those, which it sounds like there would be for PTA, but it also, I know school's not starting for another 2.5 to 3 months before students would be in the classroom needing those. So I would be hesitant to order a full 5,000 until we see how this distribution plan goes and what the need is from those in need. Thanks.
Councilwoman Heeman?
Mr. Lippert, do you have a number that you are comfortable with? Because I would agree with you that, 5,000 was, I thought, a maximum number, but 3,500 masks would actually give us 7,000 total, a split between adult and youth sizes. Joanne Fabrics is willing to accommodate us with regard to people just come in and sort of ask for what they want, and or we can swap out sizes as we need them. They're very accommodating, and there actually cannot, and that would be a cost of $14,000. There can actually not be a solid distribution plan until we actually have product to distribute. So I think that we've gotten a big commitment from Joanne Fabrics for the distribution help, and from the schools with regard to helping us even through seniors. They're not opposed to the seniors coming up and getting them at a school. They just happen to have the number of youth masks that our statistics don't normally provide us. So that's where they become involved, and not necessarily for the students to go back to school. If that helps you understand why we would need to make a purchase in order to have a distribution plan. So if you are comfortable with 4,000, 3,000, I mean, why don't you sort of let me know what your comfort zone is?
Like some other people have comments, and then I'm certainly happy to add that number.
We're going to actually have to move on because our council meeting is about to begin. Director Lieber, I saw your hand up. And if you wouldn't mind condensing your comments, please. Thank you.
And just quickly, because I don't want council to think that there aren't resources for people in need, the Senior Center has had a mask distribution program now for months. They receive supplies for free, and they've had a setup in their lobby where folks can come in and grab a mask or call and it'll be dropped off to them. And the pantry has had about 1,500 to 2,000 masks that are reusable that they're distributing to clients or other folks that call. So if there's a gap, there's other resources that the city has had. I just want to throw that in there, that it's not that we don't have any supplies for our community. We do have some that we have been able to get out there into the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Kelly and then Councilwoman Heeman.
If we're going to throw out a number, I'd be comfortable starting at 2,000 if it helps.
Thank you. Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you. Director Lieber, I had not known any of that information before, and we talked about this before, and I had not gotten any correspondence from you by email saying that these masks were available or being given out. So that's unfortunate. Could you perhaps make sure that I get one of the reusable masks to look at? Because if this has been a program, you know, certainly somebody should have mentioned it when we were first talking about this. So unless it's just been recent, you know, it's very unfortunate that that information is not shared. So is anyone able to make a commitment that we should purchase 2,000 masks and go with a distribution to a youth population and then a generic adult population that will not be served at the senior center or other places? Council President Jones, I'll let you show of hands or whatever you think you want to do about.
I don't think we need a formal show of hands. I'm just checking, I'm just scanning my screen. It looks as though maybe Councilman Lippert would like to make a comment.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say 1,000, and you said that now, just to be clear, so if you say 1,000, is that 2,000? And if you say 2,000, is that 4,000? Because to me,
yes.
1,000's, yeah. To me, 1,000 is able to start a program and see what goes, and the youth population definitely makes sense. I think the question is when to distribute. Obviously, people are using masks now, but it's a long way from when they would be using it in a school environment. That's why I'm wondering when we should actually purchase those.
Well, we would have them in 5 to 7 business days there in the warehouse. From some of these other companies, they had to order them, and they, you know, had back orders on some things. So Joann Fabrics is guaranteeing a 5 to 7 business day delivery of them. And I really would like for you to not think of these as that they're back to school. That's not exactly what they are. If you are 2 years old or older, the governor says you have to wear a mask if you go somewhere with your mom or your dad. So it's not only just back to school, it's that, you know, parents are having to try to find small masks. They're having to wash them if they have to take their child on a regular basis with them to somewhere. So it's not just back to school, it's that the school has decided that this was an important community project and wanted to help. So would you really object to a purchase of 2,000 though? And then we can really, I think, set out a good test to see then within a week of a distribution and see if we even need any more.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't.
Okay. Looks like then the purchase will go forward for 2,000. Thank you all very much. All right. We are going to roll directly into our council meeting.